How are the Democrats attempting to steal the presidential election? Occupying Till He Comes at Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Welcome, friends. This is David Schnittger, your host for today's program. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you would like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with Bible prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You will find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Thank you for your prayers and support for this faith ministry. Well, it is a great privilege to have Carol Rushton on the program today on this November 17th, 2 weeks after the presidential election. I've had the joy of knowing and working with Carol for many years at a previous ministry, and she has been on a multitude of podcasts for Southwest Prophecy Ministries. And I cannot think of a more important podcast than the one that we are taping today. For we are in the midst of an attempted communist coup against the United States. Carol, it's great to have you here today.
Well, it's great to be here. Wish it was under different circumstances, but...
I do too. This is an emergency broadcast, friends, of the most somber nature. And I know all of you have been going through the same traumatic experience that we have, but let me just briefly share my experience. I was watching the election 2 weeks ago today, November the 3rd. As of 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Donald Trump was winning, of course, many states, but in terms of the swing states, he was winning in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, and was on a secure path to exceed the 270 electoral votes necessary to win the presidency. Then, for some strange reasons, vote counting stopped in all of these states. It came to a dead halt about 11:30 or 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Well, eventually, I got bored. I went to bed, confident that Donald Trump had won re-election. When I tuned into the news at 6 in the morning the next day, Trump was now behind in Wisconsin and Michigan, and his substantial lead in Pennsylvania and Georgia was slipping away. And eventually, we are told, his advantage in those two states were gone, Pennsylvania and Georgia. He lost those, we are told. So by Saturday of the week, the mainstream media announced that Joe Biden had won the election, and he had a coronating speech. And that continues to be the media narrative by all the mainstream media networks, including, sadly, Fox News, which I no longer watch. Well, we want to talk about what happened, what is being done to stop the steal, and what you can do as an American citizen and a patriot. So we're just going to give the broad strokes of what happened, some of the different ways that the Democrats have attempted to steal this election. They've been working on this for 4 years, since Donald Trump won in 2016. And this is not by any means comprehensive, so it's kind of going to be a freewheeling discussion today in terms of some of the elements. There are many elements in the Democrats' attempt to steal this election. And I'll talk about the first one. One is an article from the Common Sense Show entitled Arizona, 14,099 Maricopa County, Arizona voters did not prove citizenship. So this article talks about the number of illegal aliens that somehow got onto voter rolls or somehow were able to cast a vote. So one of the elements in this attempt to steal the election is to use illegal aliens who, of course, are not eligible to vote, who should not be in the country in the first place. But many illegals voted in this election. And, of course, Arizona is one of these tightly contested states where, at least as far as I know right now, Joe Biden is still leading, probably in some ways because of the illegal aliens that have illegally voted. Now, another element of this that is really coming to light that's very important and very massive is what we call Project Hammer or Dominion software. And I'm going to have Carol tell us about that.
Well, this is something that evidently the Trump administration knew about, that most people, Americans, including I think you and me maybe, didn't know about until after the election. Now, this was a program developed by the CIA for use in foreign countries. It was never supposed to be used here in the United States. Evidently, from what we've been hearing, Barack Obama became aware of this software and he used this in 2012. If you remember in 2012, Romney had these massive arenas filled, and people flocked to see him. He was the presidential Republican candidate in 2012, and he would have these massive rallies where thousands and thousands of people attended. Well, when the Democrats would have these rallies, or Barack Obama had these rallies, there weren't very many people who showed up. And some of them no one showed up. And yet Barack Obama won the election. And from what David and I have heard, he used this software. He got it from the CIA, and he used it in certain states and during the election of 2012 to steal the election. And it goes about 3%. And some of these elections can be very tight, especially in these swing states. And it was just enough for Barack Obama to win the election. And so sometimes it's called Hammer, sometimes it's called Dominion. And evidently it was a little bit of a shocker in 2016 because it really didn't work as well as it was supposed to, or didn't work well enough. And Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 when she thought she was supposed to win, and all the Democrats thought she was supposed to win. And I think we had ended up having a pretty honest election at that time because Donald Trump won. And everybody was shocked and surprised. Well, we had an honest election. Now, fast forward here 4 years, it's remarkable that about 2 to 3 weeks before the election, PBS, who is not known for being a very conservative or Republican news outlet, very far to the left, they actually had a program detailing about the details of this Dominion software, how when certain states use it, votes would flip from one candidate to another candidate. There is some, in Michigan and Wisconsin, there have been reports of heavy Republican districts or areas where Trump only got 2 points. Now, while that may be possible, is it reasonable? Is it logical? Does it make sense? No. In a heavy Republican district where massive amounts of Republicans came out and voted for Donald Trump, you're trying to tell me that he only got 2 votes in these heavy Republican districts, please.
And from what I'd heard, that this Project Hammer software, and maybe you kind of already alluded to this, was programmed to where Biden would win like by 2 or 3 points in each state.
Right.
But if the turnout for Trump was so massive, they might need to supplement that with mail-in ballots. Yes,
mail-in ballots, or I remember what happened in when Al Franken was running for the Senate seat in Minnesota against Ron Coleman, who was the Republican incumbent, and it was a very tight race, but Coleman was ahead. And again, they went to bed. Coleman had won the seat. Well, surprise, surprise, they found bags of ballots, all for Al Franken. One in the trunk of somebody's car, one in a closet. They were remarkably off breaking. Funny how that works. You know, when they find these bags of ballots, they're always
for the Democrats.
Yeah, the Republicans never end up finding those bags of ballots for them.
And I heard that that same kind of thing happened in Wisconsin and Michigan. About 4 a.m., Shazam, they found some trash bags in the voting areas, and like 100,000 here and 200,000 there, and every one of those mail-in ballots was for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think
4 in the morning.
4 in the morning. They found happened in Pennsylvania and Georgia. Wow, what a coincidence! And I agree with you. I gave up about 12 o'clock. At that time, President Trump was ahead in Pennsylvania by between 600,000 and 700,000 votes. There was no way.
It was massive.
Massive. There was no way that Joe Biden could have caught up in Pennsylvania. Yet he ends up winning the state. Please.
Yeah. Well, here's another part of the steal operation that we have been finding out about. Thanks to James O'Keefe and Project Veritas.
Yes, Project Veritas.
There have been some Postal Service employees who are whistleblowers, and they told how their supervisors commanded them to backdate these absentee ballots or mail-in ballots to November 3rd so that they could be counted into the totals. And some of these employees have gone on record, have signed affidavits stating that they were forced by their supervisors to backdate these. Some of them have been fired or placed on leave because of it. So, it's terrible to say this, but the United States Postal Service, at least some areas in Democrat states, are totally in the bag for Joe Biden.
Yes.
And are part of the steal.
Yes. I have something to add on that. When I heard this bit that James O'Keefe did with Project Veritas, and they actually called one of the supervisors and asked the supervisor, did you tell your employees to backdate these ballots when they came in? He hung up the phone.
Oh, that's kind of suspicious, isn't it?
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Yeah. So there have been a multitude of ways. The Democrats have been plotting for 4 years how they can oust this president, and of course they've put us through Russiagate, they put us through Ukrainegate, they put us through the Chinese virus, they tried to impeach our president, and the Maoist rebellion on the streets, and now this is the 5th attempt to exercise a coup against the president. They've been working for 4 years to steal the vote.
Right.
And so that's what's happening. Let's just talk for a few minutes about some of the efforts that are being done by the Trump team to attempt to stop the steal. And we will be sharing some things, friends, that you can participate in so that you can be part of this national effort as well. I have an article here that talks about an election data team. These are Trump team people. Election data team to call 1.25 million voters over anomalies in the 6 contested states. This whole election is riding upon 6 contested states now. I think Arizona, Nevada is still in play. We've got Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia.
Yes.
I think those are the only states that are still in play where they're having recounts and that kind of thing. And that's where a lot of this funny business is going on.
Yes.
That we've talked about. So here we have an article about the Trump team. They are literally going to be calling on the phone 1.25 million voters over anomalies in 6 contested states. This is a very time-consuming process. I assume that they'll be calling these people and saying, oh, was it your intention to vote for Joe Biden? Or it looks like you voted twice, once under your maiden name, etc. It looks like your deceased relatives have voted. There was actually a person who was born in 1823 that voted in this election. It's amazing the longevity of some of these Biden supporters. They all vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, they all vote for Joe Biden. It's remarkable.
It's amazing.
It's a miracle.
They're literally coming back from the dead to vote for Joe Biden. That's
how excited they are for him.
The fervor. It's amazing, though. The people who are alive don't have a lot of fervor, but the dead people, they're coming out of their graves, literally, to vote for him. So this is one thing that's going on. Trump has some amazing people working for him in terms of his legal team. Of course, Rudy Giuliani,
Yes.
one of the greatest prosecutors in America, is on the legal team. Sidney Powell, who's been defending General Flynn, is on the legal team.
Jay Sekulow.
Jay Sekulow, wonderful, wonderful man,
Right.
is on the legal team. Many, many others that are on the legal team and doing great work. I have another article. It's too long to share in some, but it's a great article by Donald Trump, one of his oldest friends, political friends and allies, Roger Stone, who was persecuted by the deep state for 3 years and was recently exonerated by the president. And he wrote a great long article, and I just want to quote from some of it. The article is entitled "How the Democrats Plan to Steal the 2020 Election." And we've talked about some of the ways already. But he says this, and this should encourage each one of us. As we review the Constitution, which last I heard is still in force, and we have an Electoral College, and as much as the Democrats want to overthrow that, it is still in force. So let me just quote from the article. He says, "To be clear, neither the state nor federal courts have the final say in this epic saga. Regardless of judicial rulings, Republicans in the state legislatures have an obligation to review the massive evidence of voter fraud and determine whether the election has been legally and honestly conducted before deciding who should represent the state in the all-important Electoral College." So let's review our Constitution a little bit. The Electoral College, which I believe meets on December the 14th.
Right.
Each state will cast their vote. The
Right.
electors, I think in Oklahoma we have 6 or 8 electorals. It's based on our House of Representatives and Senate. I think that's it. And so each state will vote according to who legally won that particular state and will cast their Electoral College votes toward the presidency. And the magic number is 270 electoral votes. That is the majority of electors in our country. And it is important to note that 37 of our states have a Republican majority in their legislature.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's true in some of the disputed states. Michigan and Wisconsin have Republican legislature. Georgia has a Republican legislature. I don't know about Arizona or Nevada. So we have 37 out of our 50 states have Republican majorities in their legislature. And according to our Constitution, it is the state legislatures who vote in the Electoral College for the presidency. So Roger Stone's view in this article is actually very encouraging. He says there's only one way that Donald Trump is going to lose the presidency, and that is if he concedes. And Stone says, "I have known Donald Trump for 40 years, and this is a man who never gives up, who will never concede."
No, I mean, I think that if he was confident that the election had been conducted fairly and there was no voter fraud, evidence of voter fraud or massive voter fraud, and the American people had honestly elected Joe Biden, he would be unhappy, but he would still concede.
Yes.
But
he is a man who's devoted to the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
And if he had legally lost, he would have already conceded.
Yes, he would. He sure would have. And it's obvious that he has not. And the Democrats are doing all that they can to steal this election and put in an illegitimate president and an illegitimate vice president and an illegitimate administration to turn us basically eventually into a communist country. And I think it would happen pretty quickly.
Yes.
You and I both very quickly.
Sooner rather than later. And
Yes.
you know, Carol, he's not behaving like a lame duck president.
No.
Within 2 days of the election, he fired Mark Esper, the defense secretary, because Esper was not following. He turned out he was a deep state operative. Rumor has it he's going to fire Gina Haspel at the CIA.
Yeah.
Because apparently the CIA was involved in this Democratic attempt to steal a vote. He's not behaving like a lame duck president.
No, he never has.
You don't see him packing his bags and, just kind of hanging out, watching ESPN like his predecessor did all the time.
Yes.
Letting Valerie Jarrett make all the decisions. No, he's behaving like a president.
He is. He absolutely is.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's quite remarkable I mean, the last year of a presidency before an election usually is pretty much a lame duck year for the president. And think of all that Donald Trump accomplished. He was almost 24 hours, 24/7, trying to find a solution for the coronavirus. He and his team actually had a breakthrough in the Middle East and had 4 peace agreements with Israel, Arab countries. That's remarkable in itself. And he was continuing to build the wall on the southern border to keep out illegals. I mean, he went through all these rallies. He's remarkable.
5 or 6 a day.
5 or 6 a day.
Right.
Remarkable energy.
Massive superhuman effort.
Absolutely. So I think he's just a non-stop president. I mean, for people who maybe can remember, kind of reminds us of the Energizer Bunny. He never stops.
Never stops. I mean, the people on his staff, they can't keep up with him.
No.
That's one reason why the White House staff has such turnover.
Right.
He wears them out.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
They have to quit. I mean, good people. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she only lasted like 2 years. He runs through people not because he's bad to work for, because he's so good to work for. And they can't keep up with him, so
Right.
they have to retire.
Right.
And go into the media, where they have a reasonable schedule.
Yeah.
But he just never gives up. He was nominated for 3 Nobel Prizes within the last 2 months. And unlike his predecessor, he actually did something to earn them.
Yes, he sure did, didn't he?
Peace in the Middle East, warring countries in Eastern Europe that have been fighting for decades. He's brought them to the peace table. And so he hasn't sent any troops into foreign wars, no new wars. He's trying to bring troops home. He's making peace agreements in the Middle East, which nobody thought was possible.
Not with Israel. No, all these Arab countries. It's been absolutely remarkable and amazing to see that he's been able to, and his people on his team, and Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, been able to do a remarkable job of convincing Arab countries that having peace with Israel is the right thing to do. And I think the reason that the Saudis haven't done anything is, to be honest with you, I think they were waiting until the election to see who's going to be president.
Okay. So they'll come on board once this thing is resolved.
I think so.
And of course, Sudan was the most recent country to make
and that's
that's a hardcore Muslim country.
Oh, absolutely. And so I think the Saudis are waiting, and if Joe Biden really is installed as president, you're not going to see them making any peace agreement with Israel.
I've seen news out of the Middle East that if Biden becomes president, there will be war in the Middle East. Everything's going to fall apart, and of course he wants the Arabs, the Palestinian state. So the whole thing is going to unravel very quickly.
Yes.
Under Biden, and probably that's what he would like, another Middle Eastern war.
Sure, because it takes focus off of him, and probably we have to also have to remember that he probably will only be president for a few months, because I'm convinced that they're going to use the 25th Amendment to get rid of him and install Kamala Harris as president, because that's who they really want.
Yes, yeah. He's just an empty suit until they can shuffle him off to the nursing home. And Kamala Harris is the most radical member of the U.S. Senate, which is saying a lot, because we've got some pretty radical people in there, like Crazy Bernie. And she's even more radical than Crazy Bernie is.
And that's really hard to believe, but yes, she is.
Yeah. And if you listen to her, and I don't like to, she has made some very threatening statements toward Trump supporters. There's going to be a purge, a communist purge against Trump supporters.
Yeah, they're already talking about an enemies list.
Right, and Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So like hardcore Marxists, they are going to move very quickly against their political enemies.
Yes.
And the 75 million plus Americans who voted for Trump, we're all going to be on the list. So what can we do? What can you do as an individual? Let me suggest a few things before we close today. One is you can donate to the President's legal fund. As you would expect, this is a very expensive process as he hires lawyers, as they litigate, they file lawsuits in states, and eventually this will go to the Supreme Court. So you can donate to the President's legal fund. If you're like me, you're getting texts from him on an hourly basis for that. So you can go to the President's website if you want to donate for that. Also, you can write the President. There is a nationwide movement to write letters to the President that he will present to the Supreme Court, basically expressing that your vote has been disenfranchised because of the illegality, the stealing, has nullified your vote, so you can actually write to the White House and express your feelings about having the election stolen from you. And then there's something also that's kind of spontaneous and grassroots that's growing up around the country, and that is weekly rallies at noon at your state capitals. My wife and I went today to the Oklahoma State Capitol for a rally, and we had about 150 very spirited American citizens and patriots there expressing support for our president and disdain at the attempted steal. There were about 200,000 American citizens that attended a gigantic MAGA rally in Washington, D.C. today. They marched from the White House to the Supreme Court. Had some great speakers like Sebastian Gorka. Our beloved president actually drove down Pennsylvania Avenue in the Beast and greeted the ecstatic crowds. And I suspect this will not be the last march on Washington until this thing is resolved. There is a website that you can keep track of what's going on at the grassroots level. It's called Stop the Steal. Just Google Stop the Steal, and it will tell you what is going on in your state. And again, all 50 state capitals are having weekly rallies at noon in their states to rally for our president. You get the latest information about what's going on legally at these grassroots events. And then finally, most importantly, you can pray for our president. Pray for our Vice President, Mike Pence. They're both professing believers, as well as their wives. You can imagine the stress that is upon them as a family, the danger that they are under, because these Bolsheviks will not stop at anything, including assassination, to take over our country. It has long been the objective of the communists to take down the last major free nation in the world, that is the United States. And they will stop at nothing to do so. So we need to pray for the safety of our president, the safety of our vice president, and the leadership, and do our part. This is literally, you could call this our Alamo. If we lose this battle for the presidency, we've lost our republic. There will never be another opportunity for a patriotic, American first president to ever be elected in this country if they are allowed to steal this election. Free elections is a cornerstone. Free and fair elections is a cornerstone of the American Republic. Once that is lost and the citizenry loses their faith and confidence in free and fair elections, our republic is gone. So this is literally our last opportunity to remain a free people. Carol, do you have any final words to encourage us?
Well, I think it's important to also remember their families. I mean, I'm very concerned about the president's children and grandchildren, and everybody in that works in his administration. They're really fighting a battle here. They're fighting a battle with the media. They're fighting a battle with the Democrats. They're fighting with the communists. They're fighting all these corrupt officials. It is extremely difficult. And we also need to pray for those who are working out in the field, for the lawyers. It is extremely difficult for these pro-Trump lawyers to get the information that they need, because these Democrat officials in these Democrat states, in Democrat cities, are blocking them. And so it's very hard work. It's time-consuming. I know Mark Levin's wife, Julie Levin, is out there also working for the president and trying to track down all of these different issues with the elections in these states. So there are many patriotic lawyers out there. We need to pray also for our Attorney General, because I think he's also in grave danger as well. And if Donald Trump and all of the legal efforts are successful, and this voting is proved and exposed, and Donald Trump does take the oath of office again for the second time, you can be sure that the danger to him and his family and everyone in his administration is going to increase, not decrease, because those who want to take out the president, they are not going to be happy, and we have to be prepared. So I think our country needs a lot of prayer. Those who are trying to work for the truth and expose all of the election fraud, they need a lot of prayer.
I think the leaders of this, until the leaders of this Marxist revolution are arrested and put behind bars or face military tribunals, our nation is in grave danger.
I agree.
I think one positive shift from this, as we kind of round things out for today, I'm seeing already beginning of a massive shift away from the legacy media and the big tech giants. For example, Fox News, which was one of the first news outlets to declare Biden as the next president, their viewership went down by half in one day. Mm-hmm. There's a massive move to boycott Fox News, and viewers, Newsmax viewers has been going through the roof. One American News is also rapidly increasing their viewership. Also, we're seeing a massive shift away from the tech media. Mm-hmm. Facebook, people are deserting Facebook, moving toward Parler. People are deserting Google, moving toward other platforms, liberty platforms. So I think that this latest outrage is finally pushing conservatives away from the prisons of these tech media.
Yes, I agree.
They're tired of being censored. They're tired of having their posts, taken down, their reach being suppressed, and they're just moving away.
Right.
So that's the way to do it, as actually through competition, move to First Amendment platforms where conservative voices and conservative views are not suppressed.
Right.
And you basically just starve them. Fox News, I've been an ardent listener for Fox News, but no more. I'm just done with them. And so it's Newsmax for me, One American News. There are some liberty-oriented news mediums. Obviously, there's many internet locations that have a lot of wonderful, unfiltered, patriotic news. And so I'm hoping that this latest outrage will awaken Americans to say we've got to get away from the propaganda. We've got to get back to the truth.
Right.
Otherwise, our country is lost.
Yeah.
It really comes down to that. Well, not exactly a happy subject. So, friends, this has been an emergency broadcast. We are calling upon each one of you to pray for our president, pray for our country, take appropriate actions where you are locally, give to our president, attend local rallies, follow the truth on these various outlets that we've talked about, and we will see how it plays out. We believe that our Constitution is our best protection, and an informed electorate is also our best protection, and we're 100% behind that. That's why we're doing this podcast today. So we're out of time for today. Thank you for joining me, Carol, for this emergency broadcast. And possibly next week we'll be giving an update. And hopefully we'll have some good news to share.
I hope so. I hope the next update will be a little bit more positive than this one.
I'm hoping so. I don't think this is going to be resolved in the near term, but we just have to have resilience and persistence. Mm-hmm. Stand for the truth, stand for the Constitution, stand for America, and believe that God is with us.
Yes.
Well, friends, thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I trust this has been encouraging and informative to you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, this is your host, David Schnitker. Thanks for listening.